Official Street Preachers, and today I wanted to tell you guys a story because with all this stuff that's gone on with Charlie Kirk and all these shootings and attacks by the left wing and all of that that's been going on, I wanted to give a personal detail about something that happened. They took all my videos down, and it was just the censorship was really bad. So I never really did get to tell this story at the time. So, because this sort of thing is so pertinent in the news today, I thought I'd tell the story now. I thought I'd go ahead and talk to you guys about this tonight. This is the normal time that I do my live video. And so I wanted to come on and tell you guys this story and let you know a little bit about what happened to me and why this video is entitled The Day a Transgender Tried to Unalive Me. Really did happen. Actually did happen. So, like I said, it took place back about 2017 or 2018. I actually met this individual twice, this transgender person. I met them twice. It was a man who was trying to transgender into a woman. And the first time that I met him, it was in front of a place called St. Mary's Episcopal Church. I believe it's on Tudor Avenue, I think. I'm not 100% sure about that. But I think it's on Tudor, and it's there in Anchorage, Alaska. So St. Mary's Episcopal is a very left-wing church. They support all the gay rights. They fly rainbow flags, Black Lives Matter, all that kind of stuff. You know, they wore 3 or 4 masks, during the pandemic. You know what I mean? Those kinds of people. So anyway, um, so they were having a transgender visibility day or something like that. And so my wife and I were standing in front of uh, their church on a public sidewalk out by the driveway. Everybody would come driving in. There was only one main entrance to come into the parking lot. So we were right there, and everybody saw us as they came in. And I had this big sign that I had made up that said, God made them male and female only. So, basically, there's no such thing as transgenders. So we're standing out there, and these people are coming in. Of course, they say their church is welcoming to all, but this night they came out and personally trespassed me from the church. They had the police show up, and even though I was on a public sidewalk, they came out and gave me a personal trespass warning, never to step foot on church property, because all I had to do was stand out there with that sign, and by golly, I wasn't welcome at a church that's welcome for everybody. Excuse me. So anyway, so we're out there standing there, and a couple of people would stop and talk, and we would talk to them, and everything was going fairly well. And then this transgender guy, a man who's trying to transgender into a woman, transition, he comes up the driveway and comes out to talk to me, and so he starts talking to me, and he tells me that he's been confused about his gender for quite some time, and he doesn't really know what to do about it. And I said, well, if this was 50 years ago, I'd have a different answer for you. But today, we have DNA. You can go take a DNA test, and you can find out if you're XX or XY. If you're really confused, all you have to do is go get yourself a DNA test. At the mere mention of this scientific, development and explanation for him and telling him that this is exactly what you could do, he became so enraged that he grabbed my sign out of my hand just really quickly and threw it out into the main road into traffic. And so I just turned around. I went out there, looked both ways before I got out in the street, grabbed hold of my sign, came back. By that time, he was walking away and leaving. So I thought this was probably the last time I was going to see this person. Unfortunately, that was not the case. A couple of months later, they were having another transgender event at some sort of house where they have a lot of it's like an opera house or something where they have lots of plays and operas and things in downtown Anchorage. And so, almost like a convention center kind of thing. So we were down there and they were having a transgender play that was going on. And so it attracted a lot of the LGBT community. So I went down there by myself this time, and I was standing out there preaching the gospel to all these LGBT people going inside this transgender play that was going on. And a little while later, after this was going on, everything was fine. And lo and behold, here comes that same guy. Same guy walking up the sidewalk. Now, mind you, I'm standing on a public sidewalk, and the entrance to the building is a few feet in front of me, but I'm standing about 3 feet from the edge of the street when this happened. Okay? So as he walks up to me, I said, "Hey, you giving any more thought to getting that DNA test?" And he, without a word, just rushed at me and pushed me, like struck me in both shoulders with his palms and pushed me, sign and all, except I dropped the sign. As I fell over backwards, I let go of the sign and it fell onto the sidewalk. And I fell into this busy street. And there were cars coming down the street, and there were brakes screeching to a halt to try to keep from running over me. I literally had a bumper about a foot from my face when that car stopped. That car came within about a foot of running over me. He tried to kill me. He tried to unalive me, I should say, for YouTube censorship. He pushed me into a street in front of an oncoming car. That's the closest I've ever come to losing my life while preaching the gospel. And this was from a transgender guy. Now, like I said, when I fell over backwards, I landed in the street. The car screeched to a stop. God gets out of his car and says, "Oh, God, are you all right?" I said, "Yes, sir, I'm okay." And I get up and I go to the sidewalk, and the guy has not left. The transgender guy is still standing there. At this point, I go to grab my sign. He tries to step on my hand and step on my sign at the same time. And this is the only time, I kid you not, the only time I've ever struck a sinner out doing on a preach. I grabbed the sign. He tried to step on my hand. I moved my hand and I put my elbow right into his crotch. One quick boom, jab. He grabbed his crotch and backed up. I grabbed my sign. I got up. I said, "Look, you can disagree with me. You could scream at me. You can yell at me. But you try something like that again, and I'm not going to be nice." And so he just flipped me off and walked away. Never did see him again after that. But that was the night that a transgender person got violent with me. Actually got violent with me twice. He got violent with me this first time by taking my sign and throwing it in the street. But I think he got the idea when he thought, "Oh, I should have pushed him into the street." I think that's what he thought when he saw me go to the street. He thought I could have pushed him into the street. And I think the second time, that's exactly what he intended to do. And that's exactly what he did. He tried to unalive me that night. So the reason I'm telling you this story is because I used to work in law enforcement. And in law enforcement, we understand that there's a fine line between suicide and homicide. A lot of people that want to kill themselves, what they do is they seek out to kill others. You see this with the school shooters. We saw this today at an ICE facility in Dallas when a left-wing guy sniped at, assuming he was trying to hit some ICE agents, and he ended up hitting 3 illegals that were being transferred, 2 of which were killed. And they found his ammunition. It was kind of a copycat thing of Charlie Kirk. He'd engraved a bunch of anti-ICE stuff on the bullets and everything, and he killed himself. He shot himself after this was over. So you see, there's a fine line between suicide and homicide. Lots of people will kill others and then kill themselves. And so this is an extraordinarily dangerous type individual. Now, the problem that we're having with these transgenders, several problems. Number one is they're being lied to. They're being told that all their problems are because, not because they just grew up in a horrible household, or because of, maybe their parents were drug addicts or whatever, or their family hated them for whatever reason, or they're just having problems in their life. They're being told these problems are because, well, they were born in the wrong body, and you just need to transition from male to female or female to male, and this will solve all your problems. You were just born in the wrong body, you know? And so they're being lied to, they're being deceived. And when reality doesn't match with their deception, they become disillusioned. And at this point, what they often try to do is they try to get others to compensate for that by reaffirming their delusion by, oh, you're going to use my pronouns, my preferred pronouns. You are going to refer to me as a woman. I'm going to be allowed to go into women's restrooms. I'm going to be allowed to be in women's sports, even though I'm a biological male. So they're trying to get the entire world to convince them that their delusion is correct. And this is playing horrible, horrible tricks on their minds. Now you take that, and then you take the psychological deception, you take the psychological torment, the lies, and all of the false expectations that they can never fulfill, that you're going to be happy when you get done all this. Oh, and then you pile on top of that artificial hormones. Now, I know a lot of you guys that are watching this tonight are not as old as I am. I'm 65. But I remember back in the 80s and early 90s when they had a bunch of guys that were running around bodybuilding, and it was all the latest rage for guys to take testosterone. They would take testosterone pills, they would take shots. They would even take the shots and put them directly into the muscles they wanted to build up, like right into their biceps. Just shoot themselves full of hormones, right? And then they would go through what we called back then roid rage, because they had too much testosterone in their system. Their acne would break out all over their face, or even their back or their chest. They'd get horrible cases of acne, and then they would just like, I don't like the way you mowed your lawn, and they would just freak out over the most minor thing and go completely violent and ballistic because they were on steroids and they were going through roid rage. Well, what do you think happens when you start giving testosterone, artificial testosterone, to some little girl who is trying to transition from a female to male? It's not only going to give her a beard, it's not only going to give her more body hair, it's also going to mess with her emotions. It's going to give her roid rage. Okay? Then you take a man, on the other hand, who's trying to transition to a woman. When women go through these hormonal changes at menopause, or they go through hormonal changes right before their period, or when they're pregnant, they get these spikes and surges in estrogen. You've heard of PMS, right? Premenstrual syndrome. And they get suddenly everything stresses them, they feel completely stressed out. They get depressed. They cry for no real reason. Their emotions are completely out of control because they've got this huge surge of estrogen going on. And this is a natural process. So what do you think's going to happen when you take a bunch of artificial estrogen and pump it into a man who's trying to become a woman? It's going to mess with his head, in addition to the deception, in addition to the lies, in addition to the psychological torment that they're being put through with all of this, the psychological manipulation. In addition to all of that, you're throwing chemicals in there, right? You're giving people these chemical castration drugs. You're giving them these artificial hormones, and you think something is not going to snap. We already know that transgenders have the highest suicide rate. I mean, gay people have a high suicide rate as it is. And then transgenders have an even higher suicide rate. And after they transition, supposedly, and get the surgery done, they even have a higher suicide rate. You know why? because they suddenly realize I've made a horrible mistake and I cannot undo this. I've just sentenced myself to a lifetime of mutilation, that all these lies and these false expectations, it's not making me happy like I thought it was going to. And so and then on top of that, they're taking all these drugs. They're going to snap. That's exactly what's happening. They're going to snap. We've got transgender people running around doing school shootings, shooting up churches, doing all kinds of crazy things. The man that tried to kill Brett Kavanaugh, the Supreme Court justice, he was a transgender. It just came out. These people are snapping like twigs. They're dropping like flies, suicide. And as I said earlier, there's a fine line between suicide and homicide. This is why we're getting these kinds of violence, because we are lying and deceiving these people. I mean, I'm talking me. I'm talking about society as a whole are lying to these people and deceiving them, giving them false expectations and false hope. And then when reality doesn't meet those false expectations, they have a crash. And then you put them on these hormones, and then they go nuts and they do crazy things. Gee, what could possibly go wrong? You start pumping somebody full of artificial hormones. There's a trend right now where everybody wants to not have hormones in their beef. I don't want artificial hormones in my chicken or my beef. That's not healthy for me to eat meat that was grown with pumped up full of artificial hormones. You're probably right. So how much worse would it be if you were injecting it directly into your body? This makes no logical sense. It makes no logical sense that we'd put these people through this. You should be feeling sorry for these people. You should be feeling bad for them. They have been lied to. They have been deceived by the devil, and there was only one way out of this, and that's through Jesus Christ. We got to get this country back with God. Now, if you are a Christian, let me give you some advice on how not to participate in this craziness, how not to give these people this delusion, how not to give them false hope, how not to participate in the psychological torture these people are going through. Of course, Christians are not going to be giving them injections of hormones. Planned Parenthood is. If they're not killing babies, they're trying to kill people that are older, because they know these people commit suicide. They know they commit murder, and Planned Parenthood is nothing but a bunch of gangsters, and they're consumed with death. They want to kill everybody they can get their stinking hands on. And now it's including homosexuals and transgenders. If you want to get the gender affirming care that you need, well, just come right on over here to Planned Parenthood, and we'll give you some liquid death, and you'll go out and kill yourself. These people are despicable. But if you're a Christian and you don't want to participate in this, let me give you some suggestions. Number one, never, ever, ever address a transgender person by the gender they are trying to assume. Never. Never call a biological male a female. First of all, the Bible says we're not to bear false witness against our neighbor. So when you are doing this, you're lying to your neighbor. If you love your neighbor as you love yourself, you will not bear false witness against your neighbor. That's right there in the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Do not call your neighbor a male when they are a female. Do not call them a female when they are a male. Do not lie about their gender. Do not participate in this whatsoever. Do not help them in any way, like shop for clothing so they can dress as the opposite gender. If they come into your church, tell them, look, you're welcome to come in church, but you're not welcome to come in here like this. If you want to come into this church, you're going to have to dress your gender. You're going to have to act your gender. We're not going to let you bring this deception and this lie into our church. You never know. Person might be coming in one week, and the next week they come back with a gun and they start killing Christians, because that's happening. So you want to keep these people out of your churches. And it's not just about, and a lot of people are going to be saying, well, that's just rude, that's mean, These people need help. Yeah, outside the church. You got to be, as a pastor, you have to think more about your whole congregation than just this one person coming in the door. A little leaven leavens the whole lump. Don't let that leaven into the lump, because that lie, that deception will spread throughout your church. Next thing you know, you'll be having tranny flags and rainbow flags hanging over your church. You don't want that to happen. So do not allow them to come into your church dressed like a transvestite. Do not allow them to come in dressed as the opposite gender. For one thing, that's a sin. You can't allow sin directly into the church. The Bible very clearly gives language in scriptures against cross-dressing. Do not allow cross-dressers in your church. I mean, are you gonna sit there and let a guy guzzle a bottle of whiskey and get drunk right there in the pew? Then why would you let a transgender come in and flaunt their sin in front of God in his own house? Why would you do that? Don't allow that. Okay? Do not allow these people in your church. Do not. If you're a Christian, don't bring them around your children. For goodness sakes. Do not bring these people around your children. Don't bring them around your grandchildren. These people are mentally unstable. They're very highly suicidal. Many of them unalive themselves, and now they're starting to unalive other people. You're putting your children's spiritual health and physical safety at risk by allowing these people around your children. Don't do that. As I said, address them by sir or ma'am, whatever their gender, their appropriate biological gender is. Always refer to them as their biological gender. Never refer to them as the gender that they choose. Never use their preferred pronouns. That's another thing. Never use their preferred pronouns. If you know their real name, always use their real name. They're going to say, well, that's dead naming them. No, the dead name is the new name. That's the name of death. Their old name is the name they were given when they were born and when life was given to them. The new name is the dead name. It's not the old one. No, you're dead naming them if you name them the new name. Always call Bruce Jenner Bruce. Never call him Caitlin. Always call Bruce Jenner Bruce. Never call him Caitlin. Because if you contribute to the deception, if you contribute to the psychological torment of these people, and they unalive themselves or they go out and unalive others, then you may be held responsible by God for your actions. Matter of fact, I'd suggest you will be held accountable by God for your actions. And you're going to have blood on your hands. So I don't want blood on my hands. Whenever I go out and preach the gospel, I run into these people, I always address them by their biological sex. I never address them by their twisted, warped view of gender. Well, a woman is whoever decides they're a woman. Yeah, whatever. I guess I can just decide I'm black today. A black person is whoever decides that they're black. That's just the stupidest thing I've ever heard. In any case, as a Christian, we have a responsibility to serve God, not serve man. We have a responsibility to be truthful in everything that we say. And if you're telling a transgender person, a transgender actually doesn't technically exist. No one can change gender. When I say that, I'm just using it as a term of reference. There is no such thing as a transgender. Okay, it's just like if I were sitting here telling you about, the Boogie Monster or something, that doesn't exist, skinwalkers or whatever, something that doesn't really exist. I'm just referring to that by its name so you'll know what I'm talking about. So if you run into whenever we run into transgenders, we always refer to them, we say sir or ma'am or whatever their biological gender is. We call them a he if it's a male or a she if it's a female. We never ever use their preferred pronouns. We never ever, and oftentimes we'll ask them, what was your name given on your birth certificate? Well, that's none of your business. Okay, well, I'm going to call you Bob. You know, if you don't tell me if you're a man and you're going to call yourself Linda, I'm not going to call you Linda. I'm going to call you Bob. I'm just going to make up a name because I would rather do that than dead name them with their new name. I do not want to curse them with that fake name. And that's exactly what you're doing. You're cursing them. You're by playing along with this evil, you're cursing this people in the course of this evil. And Christians should not be doing that. And if you fly a transgender flag outside your church, you are not a church of God. You are a synagogue of Satan, and you are on your way straight to hell. And you need to get saved. Like St. Mary's Episcopal in Anchorage, Alaska. What a piece of trash that place is. I mean, if they don't repent, it'd be better if their church burned to the ground because it would do less damage to the community. You know, I'm not suggesting somebody should do that, should set it on fire. I'm not suggesting arson. I'm just saying if a bolt of lightning, if God decided to strike it with a bolt of lightning and burn it to the ground, I would not be disappointed because that church, so-called church, is destroying the community around it with their evil, their wickedness. They support abortion. And you're going to find these so-called churches, they do that. And so don't cater to their desires. Don't cater to their whims. Don't cater to their deception. Don't contribute to their psychological and or physical destruction. Talk to them about suicide prevention. If they are considering suicide, do your very best to talk them out of it. Refer them to get some help. Okay? We don't want them to harm themselves. Because if they do, they're going to go to hell. And we don't want that. We want them to live longer so they might have the opportunity to get born again in Jesus Christ and be saved. This is what we want. Okay? This is what we care about. So, this is my recommendation for you tonight. I know this video is a little bit shorter than normal, and it's just because I'm here in the camper tonight. I'm actually still kind of out on the road. I'm not at home, so I'm not doing a full-length video. But I just wanted to tell you about the time that this transgender guy tried to wipe me off the face of the earth by pushing me into heavy traffic on a busy street in downtown Anchorage. And it almost got me killed. It almost did. A bumper was about a foot from my head. This car comes screeching up, and the guy jumped out and was like all freaking out. "Oh, God, are you okay?" And I said, "Yes, sir. You didn't hit me." You know, and but he tried to get me run over and just almost accomplished it. That's the closest I've ever come to losing my life while preaching the gospel. And it was done by a transgender person. These people are extraordinarily dangerous. I don't think they should be allowed to buy guns. Honestly, on the 4473 form where it says, are you here illegally in the United States? It should say, are you transitioning from one gender to another? And if you check yes, you should be ineligible to buy a gun because you are mentally unstable and you have no business having a gun. So let's see if the liberals argue against that, stand up for the Second Amendment. In any case, I don't think these people should have guns. They're mentally unstable. They need treatment. They need salvation. They do not need to be catered to. All right. Well, God bless you guys, and y'all have a good evening. I'll be signing off now. My battery's about to go dead anyway, so I got to get off. But God bless you guys. Be reading your Bible. Stay in the Word. Stay on your knees praying to God, and stay in church. God bless you all. You have a good night.